All right, good morning, everybody. Our first lesson in Algebra 1 is going to be a review of the order of operations. So today, you will evaluate a numerical expression using the order of operations. Now you'll notice that I've highlighted a couple of words. These are important vocabulary words. We've got evaluate, so we need to know what that means, and then this word expression. So let's take a minute here to talk about that vocabulary. So here we go. Evaluate. When you hear that word, you hear the word value in it. Evaluate. So when you see the word evaluate, that means that you are going to find the value of. Find the value of is what evaluate means. So just to give you a simple example here, if I gave you this problem, 2 plus 3, and I said to evaluate that, I want you to find the value of it. Well, you know that 2 plus 3 is 5. So the value of 2 plus 3 is 5. Evaluate just means to work it out and get the answer. Now, the second word here is the word expression. An expression is a math problem with no equal sign. So when you see a math problem that does not have an equal sign, that is an expression. And we are going to evaluate or find the value of these expressions. Now finally, you'll notice that the expressions that we're going to be working with today are numerical expressions. When you hear numerical, that should make you think about numbers. So numerical expressions, or a numerical expression, is an expression that contains numbers and operations. So we are going to evaluate, find the value of numerical expressions. Math problems with no equal sign that contain numbers and operations. So there's our important vocabulary. Now, order of operations. Why does order matter? You know, there are a lot of things that we do in life where order doesn't matter. When I sit down to eat dinner, it doesn't matter what order I choose to eat the foods that are on my plate. If I sit down to listen to music, it doesn't really matter which song I listen to first. But there are plenty of things that we do in life where the order does matter. For example, if I'm getting dressed and I'm putting on my socks and my shoes, it matters the order that I put those two items on. I don't want to put on my shoes first and then try to put the socks over the top of them. If I am if we're taking a shower and we're going to shampoo and condition our hair, it matters what order we do that in. We want to shampoo first, put the conditioner on second. So in math as well, we're going to see here that order matters. So I want to show you that just for a minute. So you'll notice I have the same problem on my paper twice. I have 2 plus 3 times 4. And then over here I've repeated that, 2 plus 3 times 4, just so I can show you this idea that order matters. Now, when I work this first problem, I have two operations to do. I have to add and I have to multiply. So I could decide, okay, I want to do the addition first. So I could decide, okay, I'm going to do 2 plus 3 first. All right, if I do 2 plus 3, I know that's 5. and then I have times 4. Okay, so now I only have one operation left to do, and that operation is 5 times 4. So when I do that operation, I end up with 20. So 20 would be my answer. So I added first, multiplied second. Now, let's come over to this second problem, and let's change the order that we do these two operations in. It's the same problem. So what I'm going to choose to do this time is I'm going to do the multiplication first. So the very first thing I'm going to do is the 3 times the 4. So that would make this 2 plus 12. All right, now one operation left to do, and that is 2 plus 12. So if I do that, I'm going to get 14. So we see here why order matters. I had the same problem, started with the exact same problem. The only thing that I changed was the order that I did the two operations in. I added first and then multiplied the first time and got 20 as my answer. And then I multiplied first and then added and got 14 as my answer. Only one of those can be correct. So you all know we don't get to decide what order to do things in. There is an order that's already set up that we all have to follow. So when you all think order of operations, probably the first thing that comes to mind is PEMDAS. The P, you know, stands for parentheses, E for exponents, M and D for multiplication and division, and then A and S for adding and subtracting. And this PEMDAS helps us remember what order to do things in. So parentheses first, exponent second, multiplying and dividing, and then finally adding and subtracting. Now, because you all are moving into Algebra 1 and you know more math than you did in the past, what we're going to do is make a small change in this. First thing you'll notice is that I've got set up over here kind of this pyramid type shape, okay? This is to kind of help us keep track of how this is going to go. And I'm also going to make another slight change to what you've done in the past. I'm going to take this P that you've had at the beginning of PEMDAS forever, and I'm going to change that to a G. So we're going to change PEMDAS to GEMDAS. Now, here's why we're doing that, okay? So over here in my pyramid, in this top box, I'm going to put that letter G. Okay, parentheses went first. Now G is going to go first. Now, here's why I'm replacing that P with a G. G is going to stand for grouping symbols. So that G is going to stand for grouping symbols. And parentheses are definitely a type of grouping symbol, but they're not the only type. So under this idea of grouping symbols, we could have our parentheses. But then here are some other types we might see. You might see these square grouping symbols. These are called brackets. So that would be another type of grouping symbol that we could see. Then there are these fancy squiggly ones. These are called braces, another type of grouping symbol. I'm sure you've seen these before. Just two vertical bars. Those are absolute value symbols. That would be another type of grouping symbol. Probably have seen that symbol before. That is called a square root. That can be a type of grouping symbol. And then finally, and I'm going to have to write some letters in here to kind of show you what this is. If I have A over B, this fraction bar is another type of grouping symbol. Okay, so instead of saying parentheses go first, like you have in the past, we're going to say grouping symbols go first. So if you see parentheses or brackets or braces or absolute values or a square root or a fraction bar creating these groups, then whatever there is to do inside of those is going to be done first in your problem. So we're going to start off with the letter G. Instead of parentheses, we're going to use that to include all grouping symbols. Now, the rest of this is going to stay the same. So exponents, so our E is going to go in that second box of the pyramid. Then moving down, we're going to have our M and our D beside each other for multiplying and dividing. And then we're going to finish off down here at the bottom with the A and the S for adding and subtracting. Okay, now the reason I like this pyramid format for writing this is that it kind of, I think, establishes the process that we're going to go through. Okay, when you work in this pyramid, you're going to work from the top down. So grouping symbols are the most important things in the problem. Exponents are second most important. Multiplying and dividing, you'll notice, are on the same level. So one's not more important than the other. And then likewise with adding and subtracting, they're on the same level. So one's really not more important than the other. So what you will remember, and I'm going to kind of add to my picture here, when we multiply and divide, I'm going to draw an arrow here because we work left to right. Since multiplying and dividing aren't more important, one's not more important than the other, what we're going to do is first come, first served. So whoever we see in the problem first, that's the one we're going to do first. And the same thing is true for adding and subtracting. Work left to right. Whoever is in the problem first, you take care of first. So for order of operations, remember GEMDAS. Grouping symbols, exponents, multiply and divide left to right, add, subtract, left to right. Okay, so now let's do a few examples to kind of remind you how this goes. So here's the first one we're going to look at. We're going to evaluate. Find the value of 16 minus 8 divided by 2 squared plus 14. Now, to get me ready for this, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to write GEMDAS down the side of my paper, just like I had it over there on that other spot. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my problem and I'm going to see, are there any grouping symbols in it? So when I look at this problem over here, I don't see any of those grouping symbols that we talked about. No parentheses, no brackets, no braces, no nothing. So grouping symbols, done. Nothing to do there. All right, next up, I'm looking for exponents. Okay, so when I scan this problem, I see an exponent. So I'm going to take care of this 2 to the second power right now. All right, so working left to right, I have 16 minus 8 divided by, and now I get to my exponent, 2 to the second power. Let's remind you up here, 2 to the second power we know means 2 times 2. That's going to be 4. So we're going to replace 2 squared with 4. And then we have our plus 14. So notice the things that I'm not doing anything with, I just leave those alone. So now I'm going to look one more time, any more exponents in my expression, and the answer is no. So I am done with exponents. All right, next up, we're going to look for multiplying and dividing. We're going to go left to right. So as I look across my problem, the only thing I see is division. So the next thing we're going to do in this problem is our 8 divided by 4. We're going to do that division next. All right, So starting from the beginning, I have 16 minus, then I run into 8 divided by 4. Well, I know that's 2, so I replace that with 2, and then I have my plus 14. All right, let's look one more time. Any more multiplying and dividing? And when I look at my problem now, none of that, so multiplying and dividing is done. So now we're down to that very last level. And that last level tells me that I'm going to be doing my adding and subtracting. Okay, and you'll notice in this problem that we have both. We have subtraction and we have adding. Now what we're going to do is work left to right. Remember, one's not more important than the other. So whoever got in line first, we're going to take care of first. So when I look at my problem, I notice the subtraction comes first. So I'm going to do 16 minus 2 next. So 16 minus 2 is 14, and then I have plus 14 that I'm going to bring down. Continuing on with my adding and subtracting, now I can do my addition. 14 plus 14 is 28. So 28 is my answer. I want you to notice that I followed GEMDAS top to bottom. I went one step at a time. I want you to notice that over here I did one operation at a time, and that's what I want you to do, one thing at a time. Right now I want to see the steps. It's really important, I think, that you show the work. So I want you to kind of follow this example and do yours the same way. All right, so there's our first example. All right, let's come over here and look at this one. We're going to evaluate, find the value of 4 divided by 2 plus 5 times, in parentheses, 10 minus 6 plus 3 to the third power. And again, to kind of keep me on track, I'm going to come over here to the side. And I'm going to write down GEMDAS so I can kind of follow that and make sure that I do this correctly. All right, so I start out up at the top. Does my problem have any grouping symbols? Well, when I look, I see yes, it does. It has these parentheses. So I'm going to do what's inside of those first. So the very first thing I'm going to tackle in this problem is my 10 minus 6. All right, so starting from the beginning, I'm going to bring down 4 divided by 2 plus 5, and then my parentheses. And here's where I'm going to do my grouping symbols. 10 minus 6 is 4. So I put a 4 right there, and then I bring down plus 3 to the third power. So grouping symbols first. Now, when I look at this line, are there any more grouping symbols? Well, the parentheses are still there, but there's nothing to do inside of them. So no more grouping symbols because there's nothing to do inside of those parentheses. All right, so now we're down to the next level. Now we're supposed to be looking for exponents. So in this line, I see an exponent out here on the end. So the next thing I'm going to do is my 3 to the third power. All right, so starting from the beginning, 4 divided by 2 plus 5 times 4 plus 3 to the third power. You all know that means to multiply 3 times itself 3 times. So 3 to the third means 3 times 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 3 is 27. You are certainly welcome to use a calculator to help you figure that out if you'd like. So that 3 to the third power becomes a 27. Now, looking at this, any more exponents to do? The answer is no, so I can check that off and move on. All right, next up, I am looking for multiplying and dividing. And when I look, I see that I have both. I have 4 divided by 2. I have 5 times 4, so I have both. Remember, one of these is not more important than the other, so we are going to work from left to right. So who's in line first, the division or the multiplying? Well, in this case, the division is first in the problem. Multiplication is second, so the division is going to go first. So the next thing we're going to do is the 4 divided by 2. All right, you know that 4 divided by 2 is 2, and now the rest of this is just going to move down, so we have plus 5 times 4 plus 27. So there's my new problem. All right, still on multiplying and dividing. Still have multiplying to do, so I'm going to stay here and get that done. So 5 times 4 is going to go next. So starting from the beginning, 2 plus 5 times 4 is 20, and then plus 27. All right, you can see now that all the multiplying and dividing is done. So check that off, and we're down to our last step. We're going to add and subtract. In this case, notice we have only additions. You're going to work left to right. So the first addition is the 2 plus the 20. That gives you 22 plus 27. And then we do our final addition. 22 plus 27 is 49. So the value of this expression is 49. Please feel free as you're doing these to use your calculator to help you with adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. There's just a quick reminder, there is a link to the Desmos online calculator provided on our Schoology page. You can also download the Desmos app onto your smartphone if you have one and use that. It's just a smaller version. But notice again, one operation at a time, step by step, and I'm using this as a kind of checklist to guide my work. All right, so there's example 2. All right, here's example 3. We're going to find the value of this expression. All right, GEMDOS again. All right, so we begin at the top with grouping symbols. My problem definitely has grouping symbols. It has parentheses. Inside, I have something to do. So I'm going to do what is inside of my grouping symbols. 4 minus 7. 4 minus 7 is a negative 3 squared minus 6 times 7 plus 20. All right, any more grouping symbols? Well, I still have parentheses, but there's really nothing to do inside. There's only a number inside of there. So grouping symbols, I think, are finished. All right, so next up, exponents. I do have an exponent here, so the next thing I'm going to do is this negative 3 raised to the second power. Now remember, when you see negative 3 raised to the second power, that means you're going to do a negative 3 times a negative 3. Negative times negative is positive. 3 times 3 is 9. So that's going to be a positive 9 minus 6 times 7 plus 20. Everything else just moves down. If you are typing this into your calculator, you do need to put those parentheses around that negative 3, because otherwise the calculator will give you negative 9 for that answer instead of positive. So make sure if you're typing this into a calculator that you put that negative 3 in those parentheses. All right, now looking at my problem, I don't see any more exponents, so I am done with that step. All right, next up, multiplying and dividing. When I look at my problem, I only see one of those. I only see one multiplication right here in the middle. So the next thing that I will do is the 6 times the 7. So starting at the beginning, I have a 9 minus 6 times 7 is 42, and then I have plus 20. All right, looking at my problem, no more multiplying and dividing, so I can check that off. And I am down to the end. All right, so finally, adding and subtracting. I see both. I have subtracting here, I have adding here. I'm going to work left to right, left to right. So which one is first? In my problem, the subtraction sign is the first sign. So the next thing I'm going to do is the 9 minus the 42. All right, for 9 minus 42, I'm going to get a negative 33. And then I'll bring down my plus 20. Again, use your calculator to help with that adding and subtracting. I'm not done adding and subtracting because I still see adding over here. So to finish off this problem, I'm going to do negative 33 plus 20. And negative 33 plus 20 is a negative 13. So the value of this expression is negative 13. Step by step, one operation at a time. Is how we want to evaluate these. Hopefully this is all coming back to you right now. All right, one last problem I want to do with you. One last problem. Going to come over here and one last time write GEMDAS down the side of my page. And I'm going to work from the top down here. So I start by looking for grouping symbols, which I have. So the first thing I want to do in this problem is the 6 times the, or the 6 plus the 4, excuse me. So starting up here at the front, 2 to the third minus 5 times 6 plus 4 is 10. And then we have divided by 2. You all may remember in your previous classes, you know, I've seen this a lot. You have teachers who tell you to draw that little arrow right there to point to where you're going to put that number. If that's something you're accustomed to doing and you want to keep doing it, perfectly fine with me. Okay? All right, so grouping symbols. Let's check for those again. We still have these parentheses, but they're not grouping anymore because there's nothing inside of them to do. There's just a number in there. So they're just holding on to that number. So we have done everything that we can inside of grouping symbols. All right, next up, look for exponents. When I look at my problem, I see an exponent right here at the start. So that tells me the next thing I want to do is that 2 to the third power. 2 to the third power means we're going to do 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. And then 4 times 2 is 8. So 2 to the third power is 8. You can draw your little arrow if you want. Minus 5 times 10 divided by 2. All right, I look again to see if there are any more exponents, and I don't see any more, so that's done. So now we're off to the next level. Multiplication and division. And I see both this time. I have multiplication right here in the middle, 5 times 10, and I have division out here on the end. Now remember, because I see both, I'm going to work left to right. Who's there first? Well, the multiplying is first in the problem. The division is over here at the very end. So my next step is going to be to multiply that 5 times that 10. So starting from the beginning, I have 8 minus 5 times 10 is 50 divided by 2. All right, now, still not finished with multiplication and division, so I'm still on this level right now because I've got this division right here that needs to happen. So I'm going to do 50 divided by 2. So that's going to be 8 minus 25. Now I can see no multiplying or dividing in that problem anymore, so I'm going to check that off. And then I finish this off with adding and subtracting. And there's only one of those to do here, 8 minus 25. So to finish off this problem, we're going to do 8 minus 25, which is a negative 17. And again, calculator can be used at all times to help you fill these things in. All right, so we are evaluating, finding the value of numerical expressions, all numbers and operations, no equal sign. And to evaluate, we're changing our PEMDAS to GEMDAS. G for grouping symbols. If you have grouping symbols, what's inside gets done first. E for exponents. If you see exponents, they go second. M and D, multiply, divide. We work left to right, so whichever one of those comes first in the problem, do it first. And then A and S, add and subtract. Again, whichever comes first in the problem, you do it first. I want to see step-by-step work. I want to see one operation done at a time. So I want your work to be detailed for me. When you get really good at this, and I'm sure that you've got it, then I may let you start skipping some steps and combining some steps. If you have any questions whatsoever about what I've talked about today, please get in touch with me. Email, message me through Schoology, call me at school, whatever it takes, but let me know if you're having trouble so I can help you. Your assignment is posted in Schoology. When you get that done, submit it. I'll check it, and I'll be in touch if I see that there are any issues. Y'all have a good day.